Hello. Okay, so um, this is something I was working on during the week. So I know you haven't seen this one yet, so I thought I'd show it to you. This is based on the rainy day when I went out, and it was okay when I went out, but then it started lashing rain, and I found myself on an unfamiliar trail and decided to hike up a mountain in the lashings rain. I do stuff like that. It was fine. It was an adventure, and I didn't get very good work done because these are the hazards of being out in the field. Um, the weather was so wet that the sketch pad was like there's the drawing of the same scene. The sketch pad was absolutely soaking, and the materials I was using, I was just using graphite pencil, which is this yolk. They're not too bad with wet actually. They'll tolerate a bit, but it gets past a certain point and they just say, look, I can't handle it. So any marks you make or anything, there's all this kind of stabby effect and everything, which can be nice sometimes, but it's not something that can be controlled. You see, that one was done at the beginning um, of the expedition when the weather was a bit nicer. So that video upload, if you haven't seen it, it's something like painting on a wet day. That got great views, that one. Um, I don't know whether YouTube just decided to suddenly recommend my that video and last week's live more than it usually recommends, or what happened. But maybe it was just popular, the subject matter or something. I don't really know. Um, that was done in the studio, so you see how the pencil was more controllable with this in the studio. That was the graphite pencil again, with um, using these little pencil stubs that you can blend with. They're instead of using your finger and getting grease mixed in with the thing, possibly. Um, they're a nice way of blending. So that was easier to do because the paper wasn't wet, you see. But the nice thing about it being wet weather was that it was very atmospheric and memorable, because I was out for it the whole day, really, in it. And, the memory stays with you and it's very inspiring and everything. Now, this mixed media piece, it ended up looking a bit more like snowiness than raininess, I thought. But there are some parts of it I kind of like. Um, and because it's mixed media, there are sort of impastoed, built up paint effects on it that are quite nice. And to achieve those, I just messed and played. It's not dry yet. I only finished it yesterday. Um, I messed and played with different materials and it was extremely messy. There was a lot of cleaning up after it. But there are some powdered bits in it that are powdered pigments, and there are also oily pigments in there, varnishes, waxes, and um, drying medium, actually, which doesn't really have any binder in it. And there's even a gold sealing wax in there at one point. I was going to keep it black and white because it was going to be like, just a drawing kind of effect, because I had been trying to get this drawing effect of that mist, rainy mist settling over hills on a very, very overcast day, and found it hard to capture until I did this kind of dropping dry white pigment, which is just titanium oxide. It's just the pigment that you put in different types of paint in. But you see, doing mixed media things with it and mixing in other mediums in with the paint gives you nice spludgy things happening and powdery things happening that contribute to an interesting atmosphere. So, I wasn't unhappy with that piece. It's okay. And it did get me thinking in a particular direction that I'm thinking. Um, it started off in charcoal, right? It turned into oil pastels and various other things afterwards. But it started me thinking that I would like to, and I'm going to do it within the next few weeks. I'm probably going to bite the bullet. I would like to get liquid charcoal, which comes in, you can get it in tubes. And I've seen people doing drawings with liquid charcoal, and you can use it in a few different ways. You can kind of put it on with paintbrushes, um, and you can draw back into it and things like that. And I had been sort of trying to make my own liquid charcoal with this piece. And the charcoal I was getting, I probably had the wrong kind of wood. You probably need, wood that grinds down to really nice fine particles. But I couldn't get the particles fine enough. That's part of the reason this was so messy. And I had soft brushes out trying to clean off excess of the thing, and then various other things out trying to hold down what I had already on. Um, but I got a different kind of effect than some of the effects that I liked. I was initially getting the streaky kind of effect I like, that I have seen people getting with liquid charcoal. So look at a few YouTube videos on liquid charcoal if you've never tried it, and you'll see people doing demos and things, and it's quite interesting some of the things you can do with it. Certainly for somebody who likes landscape drawing, it could open you up in another direction. And somebody asked me recently under one of my videos, what's my favorite medium? And I don't really have one, because I like um, trying to generate new ideas by swapping around different media all the time, and trying out new things. And then you can get a kind of an effect happening, and then say to yourself, oh, yeah, okay, that's going into my kind of alphabet of weird little effects. Like with this one, bits I like include this blob up here and that particle effect, which I actually borrowed from a thing I had been doing with inks and watercolor, which I haven't been able to get since, because some of them happen by accident and they're hard to repeat. But you can see the way these kind of sort of random effects, you can build on them. Um, and I didn't replicate exactly what was there that day, but it was something interesting. And I had enjoyed, you see, drawing with this graphite pencil. This still has some of the titanium oxide on it from yesterday. But I was enjoying drawing with that graphite pencil. And that was what got me thinking about charcoal, because I was thinking I like that, but I like sort of the blackness that I'm seeing when I'm watching people doing with the liquid charcoal. And I have various other things like oil crayons that I worked into this with. They're really a pencil. They're an oily drawing pencil that you can do finer lines with and everything. And it was the fact that I think the liquid charcoal might be a nice purchase, because I can use things like that with them and get some watercolory effect and some streaky effect. And I can use my India ink with them as well, you see. So that's another mixed media idea. So I'll be getting that in the next few weeks, and we'll have a go with that. But yeah, so I'm just kind of updating you on what I've been doing before I launch into the new thing I'm doing today, because I'm thinking I might start a painting today. So I haven't done a painting since the beginning of summer. Last oil painting was, I was going to say it was this. Well, actually, it wasn't that. It was the one of cows. Do you remember the lino print project I did? This one has to get a layer of glaze on it. I have to wait for all that heavy paint to dry really well before I do that. But yeah, I've done a few small paintings. I did say I was going to do. I was thinking of doing the painting I did of the tree just outside the garden. I had done that in spring, and I was thinking of doing that again in the summer. And I ended up not being as enthused about that. But the thing I am enthusiastic about is um, the thing from the last expedition that I went on. I knew that this summer that I wanted to do some panoramic sort of landscapes, looking out into the distance. And instead of doing sort of groups of trees and things, I wanted stuff that had nice fields in the middle and sort of space as well as busyness, right? So the last expedition was on a very fine day. So I wasn't very happy with the way the piece that I did turned out. I liked things along the way. There's a drawing underneath that that I actually liked, and I kind of wish I didn't get rid of it. But you learn from these things, and you can't be too precious about your work either. So I had just worked on top of that drawing. But there's some things about this that I mightn't like it as a finished piece, but as a piece I can work from for another painting, it might be good. So I'll just put this away to dry. That's what I'm thinking about doing today. So I'll just show you before I leave the topic. I did do that painting as well during the week, and I'm not crazy about that one either. So I was on a kind of a downer about my work a bit, um, and it was cheered up a little bit by that mixed media one, just for it has a bit more oomph and interest about it than this, which is it just has a lot of very weak things happening in it. This one, the problem with this one for me was that it was just too busy everywhere, you know. And there was everything was competing with everything else. So I'm going to simplify that down, hopefully. Do other things with it and simplify it down. Um, what I really want to get, what I really want to get at is a painting that has a lot of strength in it, but has the character of the scene. I don't want to like copy the scene, but I want to get the feeling of the scene and the things about the scene that I particularly liked. And if you wanted to have a go at doing this yourself, because it can be quite hard if you don't get out or you're working all week or something to get references for things. Um, I'm working from the video and a photo I took as well, but I'm working from the video that I've linked to in the description to get references for this painting. And of course, this drawing is going to be a reference point for me as well for the painting. And not just the drawing, but all the work I did along the way in getting to that completed drawing. But as you can see, this shape, this canvas is very, very different, isn't it? From the shape of the sketch pad. That's because I had a big rethink. And the sketch pad annoyed me when I was doing the picture because it wasn't panoramic enough. I have another sketch pad that's has more length that way, but it's cotton rag paper that's very textured, and I didn't want to use that. So I was fighting with the shape of the sketch pad a little bit, and I'm not blaming the sketch pad on being unhappy with the thing afterwards. A lot of the thing I discovered, and critiquing your work like this, I think, is very important. Um, a lot of the thing I discovered that was wrong with this, that I felt was wrong with it, was down here because in situ, all this bit looked terribly interesting and nice and everything, but it was kind of as interesting as what was going on up here, and the two things were too equal in the composition, right? I felt so. I had always, I think, also um, sometimes it's good to know when to depart from the ideas you started with and when to hang on to the idea you started with. And the idea I started with for this was a panoramic view of mostly this bit was what I was interested in. That bit only was interesting for the day that was in it. That I said to myself, yeah, I'm going to put that in as well because it's interesting. But if you look at it just put it at the bottom there, if you look at just that bit, that's a lot more interesting. Even though it's weird having that bit in the middle there, this bit is a lot more interesting because the thing I like about this was the scope of the mountains in the background, which I would have liked to carry on a bit longer, right? Um, this canvas that I have, it's that little bit too long. You nearly have to make your own canvases to get it just right. Would have liked it to stop there and be that shape maybe. But I'm now stuck with if I do this, I may have to go back to the scene to get more information. But I will start the composition of this painting anyway today. And as you can see, I have cut out the bottom section, right? Because of the shape. I'm just concentrating on this top section. It's going to be more happening across. So this bit here, there's going to be a lot of that bright green going along the middle and a strip then of mountains in the back. And there's also going to be a strip of that front edge. And there might be, the road did curve around, that curve might come into it. But I'm still pretty loose about the idea of it, right? So I'm not fully committed to the composition even at the moment. I could come along and get myself paper of the same proportion, doesn't even have to be in the same scale, and work out the composition very carefully. But I'm wanting to do something a bit looser. If you saw the stuff that I've been doing recently, it's quite tight, small scale stuff. And I had been really enjoying it. And I'm actually not really finished with that yet, even though the other day I said, yeah, I'm going to finish with it and go back to doing bigger things. And I'm going to try and concentrate on loosening up a little bit as well, very deliberately, because this is how you stay fresh, I feel, if you keep changing your tack slightly. But this morning I was back working on really small things. I was making, on my community tab, I have posted a little fairy house that I made, and it's only like that height. But this morning I was out and I made a little ladder beside the house for it's the fairy house is for the ants outside of the house, colony of ants, and the little ladders for them to climb up onto the ivy. So if you want to see a picture of the fairy house, go to the community tab. It's got a ladder now. I'm making a picnic table for it. And what else? Oh yeah, I made a little, the old-fashioned brooms for sweeping brooms that have just long bristles on the top. I made one of those for this morning. So cute. So I'm probably going to draw that during the week. So you'll see upgrades to the house as it goes along as well. But I want to do some exclusive stuff because I don't want to be doing just the same kind of in the same vein all the time and getting bored with myself. That's what happens. So let's see what I can come up with. Oh my God. I have my reference folder. There's one bit in this painting that I didn't include properly. You can see a paler strip there. I didn't really include it properly in this, but in the photo I'm working from, there's this shape in the middle of the painting, and I love it. I absolutely love it. There are other curvy shapes, right? This painting is going to be all about curves, and the only reason I'm working on the painting, I'm standing way above the paint, standing up, looking down on the painting. The only reason I'm working like this is because I tried setting up the easel and the camera tripod, getting the right angle on the easel and everything. And it was just so difficult that it's just easier to set it up this way. But I wouldn't be working on a flat like this. It's actually easier to work something on an easel, I find. But um, I did put in some work on the underpainting as well because when I buy canvases, I usually put another couple of coats of gesso on, and I put on a gesso that I coloured with a little bit of acrylic. That's a kind of a beige colour, so it's nice to paint on top of neutral colours sometimes. Okay, so some of the things that I really liked about the scene was the weird curves in it, and there are a couple of weird curves. There's a weird curve that's sort of off center, and this tree I might take it slightly off center. There's thing in painting called the golden section, and you can make it very complicated and mathematical, or you can say to yourself that if you think of your painting as being divided 2/3 to 1/3 for compositional purposes, you're using the rule of the golden section there. So that's really, bringing it down to a very simple level. But I've never really gone into it very deeply, other than um, looking up um, why it's a thing, and where it came from and everything. You don't really need to understand it really deeply because we have an innate sense, because everything in the world is designed with this golden section thing being applicable to it, let's say. So, but it does make for a nice composition if you bear that in mind. And that's why when you have something in the middle, pretty much in the middle, oh, that's not exactly in the middle of that tree, but nearly, that it's unsettling for the eye. So you should know that uh, when you're designing a composition. You might want that. I don't know. I've used it in paintings before, but if you want a relaxing painting, um, you might not want that. You see, and I want a relaxing painting, but I want a painting that's about curves. So I'm going to do a little bit of curvy drawing, and I don't mind for this painting if I have a lot of marks on the canvas, um, because um, I want it to be fairly loose, my approach. I don't necessarily, it doesn't mean the final painting is necessarily going to turn out really loose. I don't know. Now there are other curves going to happen over here as well. So, and that this is what the painting is going to be about, the curves, right? Not so much about color. There is a nice sparkling color in this scene, but it's going to be about those curves and a couple of colors, including this bit that breaks up the center of the scene, which is in a paler. Oh, in fact, I do have a color I absolutely love that I want to use. Somebody gave me these paints, which are the 50-year-old oil colors, right? Because this is a 70s set here. You can tell by the design it's kind of 70s or early 80s, and there's a color in here I love, and it is this emerald green, which is a very pale, zoomy green, and that section there is going to be in that green. These colors have they have degraded a little bit. They're a cheap quality brand anyway, but surprisingly good for considering they are a cheap brand. But I found that, for example, that little painting I showed you earlier was done in them, and I found that I was picking off little bits, particles of, um, I don't know whether it was paint or metal from the actual tube. Was picking that out, but I still like using them, and it was the best present I ever got, I think, in my life. And I bring these out on field trips with me if I want to do an oil painting field trip. So I love them for the size of them and everything, you know. So we've got the curvinesses, and I want to make sure I'm not going up too far with those curves because I don't want to crowd the hills too much. So they might have to come down a little bit, and yet I still want some of the fields. So you see the way you kind of end up having to do little compromises unless you're planning out your drawing first and then doing your uh, your easel, I was going to say, your stretcher, your canvas stretcher size, doing that to the exact size that you want to do the drawing and the composition to. So in that way you're doing things, you would work out the drawing and the composition first. But because I'm trying to stay loosey goosey, man, I don't want to do that. I just want to be relaxed because I've noticed I get into all these mindsets about things that I'm constantly having to get myself back out of, you know, and maybe a lot of other painters experience this as well. You spend a lot of your time trying to keep yourself freed up because your mind will create all kinds of limitations for you that things that aren't necessarily problems then can become a bit of a problem, you know? See, I like some of the drawing qualities. I want to keep that in the painting. And I have this brush that I brought out with me on the expedition. I'm trying to find another one. This is a rigger. And you can do nice drawing with a rigger, even though the day I went out, the gouache I was using was drying up faster than I could get it from the palette to uh, the thing I was painting on. It was such a dry day. It was fab. Not complaining, but you know, you can use a brush like a to draw with the oil paint as well. But it's nice to have a nice loose, vigorous drawing underneath if you want to do your painting loose. You see, I would work with. I would probably, if I wanted a tighter painting, I would probably work with drawing in paint because I wouldn't want all the graphite from this graphite pencil coming out in the oil paint and messing up the color of the oil paint and everything. Um, but I don't mind for this painting because you know I'm going to try and use accidental effects to my advantage as well. So hopefully that'll be. Now I have everything in the wrong place now. This is just a little drawing problem happening now. That's it. That's more where the curvy thing is. Because I want to leave plenty of space for this swoop over here because I want to enjoy doing the shapes of those cows in the field. And in the original drawing, this bit here, I felt I was squishing it up a little bit because the size of my sketch pad didn't feel right for what I was trying to capture. So I want to leave myself loads of space, and I might have too much space now, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So that's that field where the cows are going to be in now. We had two interesting trees along here, and we had another. I see it is all about the swoopy bits. We had another foreground hill here as well, and this can come up a bit higher. There was this hedge in the foreground. And you see how if I get my painting to be as loose as my drawing when I start doing the painting, I'd do well because it's nice and energetic the marks that you make when you're being that loose. And my mind is freed up because I'm saying, oh, this is underdrawing. I don't really mind if I make loads of marks or if the marks don't turn out right, it's not the end of the world. But that is the attitude that I actually want to keep with the whole painting. So I sort of have to let go of my ego about the thing a bit, and I find that constantly with painting. I'm always having to do that, and even I was even telling myself off for this sketch pad. I was just so disappointed with the the 2 pages of the sketch pad afterwards because I'd spent all day on it. And I gave myself a telling off. I was saying, that's your stupid ego. Like, you enjoyed doing it. Uh, you know, not every painting you do is going to turn out good, but you have a few in a row that don't turn out well. It can do your head in a bit because you then start questioning why you bother doing it at all. If you're just so bad at it all the time, it becomes a big ego thing. And it is, uh, it's very hard to not be like that, because of course you care, and you put a lot of work into it, and something you put a lot of effort into, of course you're going to care about it. So it's not, doesn't mean, you just wrap for feeling like that. It's natural to feel like that. But it's good to notice it and sort of give yourself the talking to. I think, I find my talkings to myself do help. They jolly me along, because I ask myself questions. I say, well, did you enjoy it though? Did you enjoy doing it? Did you have a good day? Was it a good experience? Well, then, what are you complaining about? And it does help. Sorry, I'm looking for an eraser for that bit there and not finding one. That's another thing I'm going to get at. I'm going to get with I think I'll order this with the liquid charcoal. I am going to get a little eraser pen. These mechanical pencils like these, they come with an eraser on. Well, you can buy a little pen that is just for the eraser part. I've seen electric ones and everything. I'm sort of going, I don't know, do I want an electric one or an ordinary one? It seems like overkill to get an electric one. Oh, that's not taking anything off. I don't know where my kneadable rubber is. It's around, but where's the thing? You see, that graphite will come off on the oil paint as well. So if I was doing a very careful kind of a painting, um, that I didn't want possibly a lot of paint build up on or anything to get colours right, I might choose to draw that in paint because I wouldn't have that problem of paint picking up any of the pencil color, you see, any of that grayness or anything. But I don't mind. I don't mind for this picture at all because it's more about keeping it loose. And in fact, the more messed up it is in a way, before I put any paint on, the happier I am because the looser it'll be for me. And this has a lot of uh, coniferous trees, pine tree type trees in it, which I'm terrible at doing, but they look wonderful in the scenery. So I had better find a way of doing that. I've improved at them a bit since I started doing landscape. Well, I've been doing landscape for years and years. It's taken me years to improve. So this is it. You wouldn't want to be in a hurry for anything with painting. It's in a way it's patience, but in another way it's just if you're enjoying it. Anything you enjoy, do you really need patience for? See, I like that shape, but it's the shading of them that I never get quite right. So we've got lovely curves, right? Just to analyze this composition, we've got lovely curves, and then we've got lovely jaggedy triangular bits in it. And I think this is what makes this composition such an attractive thing. We might actually get away without having to go back to get more reference things because the way composition is working out, I might have enough info. The other thing that I definitely will be including in the painting is um, this part of the scene. I absolutely loved those little white posts, which receded a little bit as they went back up towards the hill in the mid distance. And I love them against the darkness of that. So they'll go in the end as well. They go there somewhere. Okay. So have we left enough space for our hills? Yes. Just about. And although this, I didn't think this was I was going to say a hugely successful picture. I didn't think it was a successful picture at all after about the first half an hour, which I was really enjoying. Um, some bits did work out okay. These hills worked out okay, I think, and they do have quite a lot of info in the drawing and the color that I wouldn't get from just looking at my reference photos and the video. And if anybody is going to paint this scene themselves and they want me to post up the reference photo on the community tab, I'm happy to do that. Just drop me a comment if you want to do it. Um, so I have loads of info for that, and I actually have quite a lot of info for the structure here of things. Some bits of this I like. That turned out nice. But unfortunately, what happens with the picture is that you might have some bits of it you think worked out great, but then other bits that you don't like um, really messed the whole thing up. And I didn't like the way I handled the rocks there. This hill, I didn't like the way I handled that. And this whole area here wasn't terribly successful. This should be a kind of a, I feel a kind of a lovely, smoother kind of Teletubbies hill or Microsoft Windows hill. Do you know what I mean? But look at the curves on it. Those curves are actually really there. And then the stuff going on behind the hills with the cows. I think I'm getting the hang of doing cows as dots a bit better. I drew a cow the other day and I looked at the photo and the way he was constructed in the photo was he was, say his head was down that way, right? He was basically just a thing with a dark shadow underneath. And, you know, it seems so easy now, but it wasn't, you know, and that's a different shape from a sheep. That blob is a different shaped blob from a sheep. So they should be distinguishable as, now they are distinguishable as cows from the colour, really, but to do something like that with not very much work in it, but convey the thing well, I find very difficult. And um, this is the thing about shorthand drawing of things, getting shorthands for things. When you get a shorthand for something in painting, it tends to be after some years of doing it the laborious way. You very rarely strike on the shorthand way to do it straight off. Maybe some people do, but I find I don't. I find I just sometimes have a little breakthrough with something, and one day I go, I'll do a cow really fast or something after like 5 years of drawing a cow, you know, and I might get it. Um, but I don't know, like the other way to do it is you look up videos or something of how to do cows, you know, and you watch how other people do it and you borrow stuff from their technique. But I don't know, do you then end up with a lot of borrowed techniques that look dishonest, you see, in your work? These are the weird little problems that artists run into. And I have a theory that yes, I do borrow more than I used to, I think, techniques. But because I have so many of my own ABCs of how I paint things built up, I don't mind doing that anymore. It used to be a time when I didn't want to really look at other people's work very much at all because I felt it was just influencing me too much, or it might. And I was scared it would actually, that I would be so admiring of other people's work that I wouldn't find my own little ways of. Now we have some roundy trees as well as some of these sort of triangle trees, which is fun. I think that's fun. And I can do a thing here if I can find my pencils. No, they're not here. I think what I want might be I can reach through the tripod without bashing it. I'm actually looking for an acrylic. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So my background is my gesso and everything is sort of an acrylic and PVA base. So I can draw on this with acrylic quite happily, and then I can come along with oil later and be okay with that. That's just to remind me where the cow's gone, that bit, that white bit, because I didn't want to have to get my eraser out of that. But I'm looking forward to getting that little tiny eraser. Would be get the size I would get would be like the tip of that kind of thing. Um, and I mean, I could just get refills, but the only sorts of those pens I have is that one and the big mechanical pencils. And I don't like this one. The top of it slips like mad. So I don't really want to just buy refills for this and then have to carry this out into the field because this is for what it is. It's quite a heavy pencil, you know. So I don't use it very often, and I have refill leads for it and everything, but I've never warmed to it particularly. And usually I like Faber Castell things. I was looking at Faber Castell India ink brush pens as well, and I nearly was saying, okay, I might add them to the list of things I'm going to get next time I buy stuff. And then I realized that they didn't have a brush pen thin enough for what I wanted, that when they went down to that kind of thinness, they turned into fine liner pens, which have a top like this mechanical pencil, but I don't like them because when I draw, I go on the side of my hand a lot, and those liner pens, you nearly have to draw up straight. It's mad the way you have to hold them, and they're just dreadful for me. So this is why I end up drawing with my lovely Japanese office pens all the time, because they seem to have a kind of a rollerball top on them, which you can have your hand very slanted with and they'll still behave. But I do like the idea of a brush pen. So I'm looking at some kind of Japanese style um, brush pen in India ink for being part of my field kit as well. I just haven't found the right one for me yet. And every time you get a new material like that, you're kind of you can be upping your game. I mean, you could be just somebody who's addicted to buying materials. It's no good if you're not using them and if you don't get good use out of them. But if you're getting good use out of them, and favorite things that you're using again and again, well then that's what you want, you know. That then you've bought something that's a keeper and you'll always buy refills of the same things, like those Japanese pens. I have so many of them around the place because I'm terrified they'll stop making them. I love them that much. I love discovering a product like that. So you're trying to get a very fine thing here to go back in here. So I don't mind taking time over my underdrawing of this because this is my sort of thinking time as well. And I'm considering the underdrawing, even if it doesn't show in the end. I don't know if it will or not. Part of the work, you see. Part of it might show up because using this much pencil or graphite pencil in this case is it does mucky up the paint, so it influences what the paint looks like. Okay, so I have curves going up there as well. I'm gonna have that curve going up. I might be departing slightly from things here, but not a whole lot. I just want to emphasize the curves. And I think actually in here, this whole area here was a forest, just with different depths. I might treat this like a drawing before I treat it like a painting and go in with really dark or black paint before I put on the greens. Because what I'm trying to do with this to get away from what happened with this, right, is simplify down. Because this one you can probably see yourself, even without that bit that I don't like anymore. If I just put something over to hide it from us, even without that bit, that bottom bit there, it's still too bitty, broken up, and unresolved, kind of. It needs simplifying down to find the essence of it. Do you know what I mean? Well, that's how I feel about it anyway. See, another artist feel differently about that scene, and they get something different. So we had lovely things going on here because we had nice color things going on. And if the color hadn't been interesting, I would have been quite satisfied doing this as a black and white drawing or even a black and white painting. There's nothing to say you can't do a black and white painting. But there's nice color of very backgroundy hills over here. I would have had another choice actually. I could have done this whole painting, right, in black and white, and that's called grisaille painting, Grisaille, I think. And it is tonal painting where you do a painting as if it's a drawing, just in grayscale or black and white. And then you come along and you use glazes of color. And you use, in other words, you use a medium like liquid or something for kind of watered down oil paint, and you put on layers of different colors to bring out different colors. And that the purpose of doing that really, and a lot of people did it, like Titian, very famous old masters did it because they knew that it's actually an interesting idea. Will I do that just for the hell of it? Will we do that, folks? Will we be just brave and do that? I don't know. I have to completely uncommit from the other plan to do that. Oh, I don't know. Because glazes take ages to dry, so I don't know if I want to make that kind of commitment. I'll have a think about this. Maybe I won't put any paint on until after I'm finished doing this. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that because it's a little bit too organized. It's tempting though in another way because we haven't done a grisaille painting ever yet. I don't know. If I had a bigger channel, I'd ask people to vote on it. But I don't think I ever have to worry about that. I'll never have to worry about people influencing my art too much because there aren't enough people around to ask. I want to do both. No, I don't want to get stuck on one painting forever. You see, decisions, all the choices you have. But so anyway, I went into this big number, didn't I? The advantage of grisaille, right, of doing, say I continued on now and I just painted this in oil paints, but in black and white, treating it like a grayscale thing. The advantage of that is that you end up with a painting that tonally is has all your tones in the right place, exactly the way you want it, right? Before you ever go near it with colour. So in other words, you've broken up the problem of colour um, into a separate thing, and you've dealt with all the tones first. And then you can say, okay, have all my tones right. So I know if I do very thin washes of color over this, that I can add color to it, but the underneath tones will still show through, and it'll be perfect. And there, I've seen, I can't remember the channel name. I did see a very good demonstration of grisaille, somebody doing a painting of mountains in Arizona or somewhere like that, and he was really excellent at it. But I don't think I'll do that with this one because there's too much of a temptation to get all tight again with things. And I did say, didn't I, that I really wanted to loosen up a little bit after doing all the small stuff that was tight. So maybe we'll do our grisaille painting another time. So I think before the hour's up, I should put some bit of colour on or start in some way, okay? Just to say we got to start in this. And I have no idea how long this painting will take, but I want it to be fairly free painting, so I don't think I want to be months on it. So I'm going to take out my a glass palette and put a few colours out. So what will we start with? Well, we'll put in sky and a touch of that green, very, very bright green, just to sort of christen the canvas, if you like. And I had a few colours out on a different palette, but I don't have the colours I want. So what I'm doing is I am getting tube colours, but I'm not going to put them out just straight out of the tube, because I have discovered that from my investigations of colour, which I did recently, and I have a lot of live streams of colour now, I discovered that probably the reason why colours look much nicer when they're not just straight out of the tube, they look more convincing, is because you're kind of using every colour in your colour wheel, if you know what I mean. This you're using every colour in whatever colour you mix to put in. So it makes for a harmonious painting. That is the theory of it. And sometimes when they make things in tubes, they're not doing that. They're making them from separate substances. So that is my understanding anyway of why your own colour that you mix from the few colours that you're putting out from tubes like these colours, why it's more going to be more harmonious. And there is a whole science to it, and I don't know the half of it, but I did get into looking into it. So, if you're interested in any of that stuff, go back and look at the other live streams. They're all marked very clearly as being about colour. And you can get into it as deeply as you want. Okay, so this is oil painting, so I'm using Hogfitch brushes, and this is a filbert brush. This top on the brush is a filbert, and that's one of my favorites. And I have a bit of terps for a medium for the paint, but I also have this new thing that I find very exciting, and that was part of the set that somebody gave me. I have loads of this stuff. It's a fast drying medium, which I find very nice as a thing that makes my paint very slightly more fluid and manageable, you know. So I'm going to put in the green first. And I need a lid of something to put this in, because you only use a little tiny dab of this. It's also quite thin, so I'll just do it. It looks like a little, one of those little sort of naggins of booze, isn't it, that you would sneak onto a train or something. Okay, so some of the greens are very zoomy. So I'm going to film some of the bits zoomy, but you can see how that bit of graphite is influencing the green. And in another painting, I might hate that, but in this one, I don't mind it. Because I'm wanting to stay loose, aren't I? So the way I paint, and other people mightn't do this as much as me, I tend to shove things around a little bit in painting. So there's this kind of thing goes on a lot, scrubbiness. So you see that? It's even lifting bits of the graphite there. So just be aware of that if you're ever trying oil painting. That be a bit careful of doing what I did there, running amok with the old pencil. I did it as a disruption sort of technique more than I might like it at the moment, but you won't necessarily like it. You can actually fix the pencil. There's a way of doing that, and I think that involves a glaze as well. You just glaze over, put a layer, a thin layer of glaze over it. But never actually done that. I don't like using glaze too early on in a painting either. Different layers of the painting are really supposed to dry out. I'm going to show you this extraordinary blue colour, actually. My favourite colour, just for the hell of it. And it's in, I'm going to shove it in that bit there. So we're just laying out the main shapes in the painting at the moment. And I'm not going to worry too much about the drawing because I have the afterwards. But this is the blocking out stage for colour. So this is where I'll be making all the generalizations about things and trying to stop from getting too finicky like I did in this original sketch. This is what I want to avoid, that kind of finickiness. So you want to keep the thing pretty, keep this painting pretty general compared to what I actually was doing in the other sketchpad painting. So let me show you this colour, and it's out of this old set, and it's the emerald green out of it. And I do have an emerald green myself in those Taylor and Rowney or Winsor and Newton paints, but this emerald is just lovely. It's a bit different, and depending on what brand you get, the color comes out different. But those Mary's paints, I love the emerald green. Pretty. And I'm going to use up some of the white that I had in my last palette. And I like using old palettes with stuff already mixed on them, because you might want it the color dirtied down slightly. And it has to do with that idea of taking a little bit of all the colors in your color wheel as well. So every color having a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, and a little bit of yellow in it. And I loved the trick that somebody told me about recently. You get great tips from other people. This is why it's great talking to people about art. Um, I love the trick of um, saving your leftover oil paint, right? Scraping it up with a palette knife, saving it, put it in a bit of tin foil, or I had an old sweet tin there that I put in tin foil and put in the sweet tin after um every session. That those bits of goopy paint that they're not a particular color mix you want, and it went this mucky color. Save the mucky color bit, save them all, mix them all up together, and you get a lovely neutral color. And I do have a live stream there about neutrals. And I picked that up talking to people about it and YouTube vids. So, um, although I didn't pick up a lot of painting tricks earlier on in my painting career because I was afraid of getting too influenced by other people. Um, I'm certainly enjoying getting some of the tips now. Tell you, and that was a wonderful one, I thought, because that neutral color allows you to add a little tiny bit of neutral color to every color you mix. So, for example, that yellow color I mixed, if I found that color very slightly too intense, I'd knock it back with a little bit of the neutral color that I saved from the previous day, which might look like a neutral grayish color, or it might look like a sort of a beigey neutral, like that kind of color. So I'd knock back very intense colors with a tiny little bit, whatever I thought appropriate, into the mix of color until it looks right. And if I do that with all my colors, it balances all the colors out so that in theory, and it does work, I've seen it work. Um, Not like it doesn't work every single time for my work, but it has saved things a few times since I discovered it. Um, it makes your whole color scheme harmonious. It's like magic. And when you understand the logic of it, you go, oh, yeah, of course. Because every color scheme has the same lighting going on, doesn't it? So it has the same elements making up the color. So you want the same elements to be expressed on your canvas, you see. So I love this phase. We're just at an hour now. And that's the perfect time to end. Anyway, I always end after an hour, don't I? But I love this phase because this is the early phase of painting. You're filled with hope. You haven't ruined anything yet. You're setting out on a wonderful adventure as if you are an adventurer going down this emerald green path. And it's wonderful to be starting a new painting. And that's the thing, you see. That's why it wasn't worth getting all down about I didn't like this one or anything. You always get another go as a painter at something. And we have all these wonderful aids these days, like videos and photos and things to work from, as well as our own sketches and colour studies and things like that. So this is going to be very interesting painting. I'll do another hour or two maybe on it. I'll see what I have in me energy wise today. And I don't know if I'll be still working on it next week. Who knows? But I'll show it to you when it's finished anyway. If I'm finished by then, I don't know. If anybody wants to see progress on the fairy house with its new ladder, it's got a new ladder and a new broom. And oh, yeah, it has a stone circle as well, an Irish Druids stone circle I put in this morning as well. So it's getting modifications to it all the time. It's the camping table is picnic table is upside down drying in the kitchen at the moment as we speak, and I'm getting great fun out of doing it up. I have another ant hill that I'm going to do up. I'm going to draw all these things afterwards in my sketch pad as well, but I have another anthill in the front garden that's been slightly disfiguring the base of a tree for a couple of years. But I want to turn it into an Irish um, Stone Age or Iron Age village with crannogs, which are a little roundy straw huts with fortifications around them. The kind of you get villages made up of these sort of houses. I want to turn it into one of those Irish settlements, you know. So that'll be a lot of fun. So if you want to see any of those things, you know, I'm not sure what extends to the area of, you know, pure art and what is just my whimsy, but I just go with the going with the flow. So we'll see how this painting goes, and hopefully I'll be able to stay nice and loose with the rest of it. It looks better than the other one already, even this simple, doesn't it? I think it does. So have a very good week, whatever you're doing creatively or otherwise. But first, have a lovely weekend, and I hope you get some time off at least. Not everybody gets their time off in the weekend anymore, but I hope you get some time in your day to enjoy yourself and do the things you like, whether it's art or watching a movie or putting your feet up or going somewhere or relaxing or reading a book or whatever. And thanks for joining me. Bye.